believe here's your front sight and your rear sight here. Yes, us guys from Thessaloniki in Greece. Now behind me here is a ship with a storied past. Fighting under the American flag during World War II, it went all through the Pacific theater. Then transferred to Greece in 1959, the USS Charrette became the US Velos, which then was involved with engagements through Turkey all the way up until defying the Greek Junta in 1973. Now I'll get more into that when we get onto this boat and see how explorable it is. So technically this is still an active Navy ship, although it's in a museum status at the moment. It's technically still under commission. Now I was not a Navy guy, so if any of you Navy guys are watching and I fucked something up talking about something, please feel free to correct me in the comments. I guess you're allowed to go down here. It seems pretty explorable. I would assume so. So here is the crew quarters. Now Thomas, he couldn't be recorded because he was in uniform. He was a cool guy. He was teaching me a little bit about the ship. Cool thing, in 1980, this ship actually picked up a girl from Lesbos because there was like a huge storm. And she gave birth to a baby girl that they named Valina after the ship Velos. So that's kind of a cool story that you wouldn't hear about unless you ask somebody. So shout out to Thomas for that story. This place is pretty explorable. It's not like completely explorable. Here's one of the, well, obviously a dummy round, but here's the loading for one of the 5 127 millimeter guns that I'll show you in a second when we get out here. So far so cool though. This is a lot more explorable than I expected it to be. In the US, those museum ships, it's like stand back. But this is reasonably explorable. This one looks like it used to be. So here's the 127 millimeter gun. Now I believe those ammos would have lifted up through here. You would have taken the shells and loaded them manually. These look like old M1 helmets. And there's a close-up of your gun. Now this is not what I normally do, guys, but this is still interesting, so I hope you're enjoying it. And if you stuck with me this far, I appreciate you. So 1-2 of the 127 millimeters. Now normally, if I was exploring this place by myself, I'd go down here and show you all this stuff, but there's more stuff for loading the guns. So we can go through here and see what's going on back here. Obviously radio equipment. Now this was transferred from the US Navy after fighting all through the Pacific theater. It was involved in the Battle of Leyte Gulf in the Philippines, the famous battle over there. More dummy rounds, you can just see how big they are. And up through there is where they would have loaded the guns. It actually sank at least one Japanese ship. Now there's only 4 of these ships left in the world. I'm not sure if this is one of the most explorable ones, but I would go ahead and say that it probably is. So yeah, I guess the way these torpedo tubes would have worked is they just would have spun it out over the side here and then shot them right out. Then again, I could be completely wrong. Again, I'm lost when it comes to Navy stuff. I only know what I read. I believe that means that it's actually still technically part of the Navy. Let's see how we get up here. Now obviously this place is not abandoned, but it's something cool that I don't normally do. So again, I appreciate you guys. There you can start to see the little inner workings of the ship there. I would imagine that goes down to the engine room. It says do not enter, and there's a lot of guys over here, so out of respect, drop the camera down and at least give you guys a look and me a look later when I'm editing the video. Well, I don't see any barrier, so that means you can go. This is originally a US ship, so this is actually original stuff from World War II. That's really cool. Just initiated the self-destruct sequence. This is all radar stuff from the Second World War. That's really interesting. And I can actually read stuff for once. Instructions on how to maintain the equipment. And this ship was built in Pennsylvania. Well, at least this equipment was. It was actually laid down in Boston in 1942. Let's go see what else. This is pretty cool. There's an old drum-fed 50 cal. These look like repainted US helmets. I believe that's what they are. Ahoy! Whatever the Navy says. We'll make it out to the bridge here. Gun number 51, the last of the 4 guns. Down there doesn't look like there's too much. You know what's crazy is this was probably used to shoot down World War II Japanese aircraft. So there's probably a few kills on this gun. There has to be. Through the whole Pacific theater. And maybe even a few Turkish. So I believe here's your front sight and your rear sight here. Line those up and go to town. Wonder if that paddle there is the... Oh, here, no, you have actual triggers. This is cool. So interesting how that's set up. Your driver's compartment is here. And then you have your command bridge. And you can actually go over here. That's interesting. This is how it looked out of the command bridge of a World War II Fletcher class destroyer. And I can actually read stuff. And this is really cool. You can actually manipulate everything. Everything still, to some extent works. Here's your speed. These went up to 35 knots, which is 45 miles per hour or 70 kilometers an hour, which is pretty fast. Look at this. This is definitely worth the €2. So if you're ever in Thessaloniki, I highly advise coming to the US Velos. This is the captain's chair. You know we gotta sit in that. Almost banged my head right in the window. But I am now sitting in the commander's chair of the USS Charrette, and then later the US Velos. This is where Commander Karp would have sat during World War II, during the engagements in the Pacific. Later on, the ship was transferred to Greek control in 1959. But in 1967, 3 army colonels from the Greek army basically took over the government in a coup d'etat. It was the Greek Junta in power until 1974. And this seat was taken over by Commander Pappas, during which time, in 1973, he defied the Greek Junta and actually refused to leave Italy during a NATO training exercise. So, a bit of cool Greek history there for you. in addition to the long and storied U.S. history of this place. Let's just sit here for a minute. This is pretty cool, man. Sitting in a historic spot. This is where they would have been fighting in the Leyte Gulf battle, and you know, it's kind of a crazy feeling to sit in this seat. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you watching as always. You know, and until the next one, make sure you subscribe and, you know, give me a like, because that also really helps me out. And thank you for your time, because you didn't have to give it to me. Vidimo se. Well, adios.